let the musicians play. We've been free from sin for a wedding sweet day. Hallelujah. With Masha and the gospel in the desert sun, Yahweh gave him instructions on how things should be done. And so Mary, the Lamb, will have lived by every word. We are first 144,000, the two last of offered during Shavuot, so that our sins have been cleansed. Let the music begin. Let the musicians play. We will gather the worship of the day. Hallelujah. The two unwaved let the soul their promise to Yah. It's the friend of her truth, the bride of Yahushua. Our promise gathering is complete. You shall do prosper our word. We are first 144,000, the last souls offered during Shavuot, so that our sins have been cleansed. So lay on the and the violin from the guitar, and we come down glory. Let the music begin. Let the musicians play.
Shalom, everyone. This is Brother Doug. My sister Shoshana, she was the one just singing her song about the bride of Yahusha. We're doing a study today about basically a continuation of one of the most recent ones we did about the 144,000. So this is going to be a part 2. And I would like to encourage everyone, even though you're used to us reading and stuff like that, soon in the future, we're going to be doing chapter by chapter and book by book. A brother of mine reminded me that people that are not used to reading for themselves, they need to learn how to read for themselves, new believers and stuff. So I think soon, sometime soon, we will be doing chapter by chapter and book by book studies for people to be able to read for themselves, not depend on, listening to someone always reading. So anyway, I just felt like saying that. I'm going to start off our study by going into the 3 outpourings, which that's right where we went last time. Hold on, wrong document here. Let me go here. Okay, so it says here, Numbers chapter 11, verse 16 to verse 30, I will be reading. from, and I will be reading from eSword here, so it's a little bit easier for people to actually see while I'm reading. So we're going to go to the book of Numbers here in the Septuagint, and see here, Numbers 11, all the way from 16, and it says, elders appointed to aid or help Moshe. And Yahuwah said to Moshe, gather me 70 men from the elders of Yashar'ah, whom you yourself know that they are the elders of the people, and their scribes. You shall bring them to the tabernacle of witness, meaning, tent in the wilderness. And they shall stand there with you, and I will go down and speak there with you. I will take of the spirit, or the ruach, that is upon you, meaning upon Moshe, and will put it on them. So Yahuwah is going to put his spirit that is in Moshe. He's going to also put a portion of it in those elders. And they shall bear together with you the burden of the people. So this is the reason for the elders, because there was like so much of a multitude for Moshe to be able to lead into the wilderness that it was a heavy burden for him. And you shall not bear them alone. And to the people you shall say, purify yourselves for tomorrow, and you shall eat flesh, for you wept before Yahuwah, saying, who shall give us flesh to eat? For it was well with us in Egypt. Sounds like today. Where's my big steak dinner? All this other stuff sounds very similar. Yeah, we humans don't want to give up our flesh, huh? And Yahuwah shall allow you to eat flesh, and you shall eat flesh. Now this doesn't sound like Yahuwah's like, okay, you cried before me about meat to eat. Doesn't sound like he's really commending them for doing that. You shall eat meat 1 day, nor 2, nor 5, nor 10 days, nor 20 days. You shall eat for a full month until the flesh comes out of your nostrils. And it shall be nauseous to you, nausea to you, the Septuagint says, because you disobeyed Yahuwah who is among you and wept before him, murmured, complained.
Actually, several of them died from it.
Yep. So the context here is that they wanted the meat that was in Egypt, which most likely was sacrificed to idols. If you want more about that, you can check for yourselves what Paul says in Acts 15 about that. So, yeah, that's what was going on. They were actually wanting to go back to Egypt, saying we had plenty of meat to eat, and that's why Yahuwah's peed off at them. And Moshe said, the people among whom I am are 600,000 footmen. And you said, I will give them flesh to eat, and they shall eat a whole month. You shall sheep and oxen be slain for them? So now Moshe is questioning whether Yahuwah physically could do this. Give them that much food, that much animals. Shall it suffice them, or shall all the fish of the sea be gathered together for them? And shall it suffice them? Now this is Moshe's mistake here. And Yahuwah said to Moshe, shall not the hand of Yahuwah be fully sufficient? Interesting. The hand of Yahuwah be fully sufficient. I think this is like a little nod to Yahusha here. Because Paul talks about in the New Testament, even in weakness, his mercy is sufficient to me. So I kind of see a little bit of Yahusha right there. The hand of Yahuwah be fully sufficient, ? Now shall you know whether my word shall come to pass to you or not? And Moshe went out and spoke the words of Yahuwah to the people, and he gathered 70 men of the elders of the tabernacle. And Yahuwah came down in a cloud and spoke to him, and took of the spirit that was upon him, and put on the 70 men that were elders. When the spirit rested upon them, they prophesied and ceased. So this is like a portion. This is the first portion of what Joel 2 later on talks about. And there were 2 men left in the camp. The name of one was Adad, and the name of the other Mudad. And the spirit rested upon them. These were of the number of them that were enrolled, but they did not come to the tabernacle and they prophesied in the camp. And a young man ran and told Masha and spoke, saying, Aldad and Mudad prophesied in the camp. And Yahusha, son of Nun, so this is where Yahusha gets his name from, later when he takes on flesh, who attended on Masha, the chosen one, that's kind of interesting, the chosen one, say, my master Masha, forbid them. So that's very interesting. Chosen one is like, kind of like allegory to Messiah. That's kind of interesting. Chosen one is very similar to like Messiah or anointed one. And Masha said to him, are you jealous on my account? Would that all Yahuwah's people were prophets. So he's kind of saying, this is how it should be. All of Yahuwah's people should be prophets. Whenever Yahuwah shall put his spirit upon them. And Masha departed into the camp, himself and the elders of Yashreel. So that was Numbers 11, 16 to 30. And that is the first outpouring that ever happened in that time period. So that's the first time it's ever recorded, Yahuwah giving his spirit to many people at one event. So we'll see this again as we continue here. We're going to see this again in Acts 2:17, which is the second instance of an outpouring, the second time it happens. And so we're going to go to the book of Acts, chapter 2:17. Yeah, I'll be reading from the Complete Apostles Bible. And here we go. It says, and this is a quote. He's actually quoting from Joel 2:32. That's why in your Bibles there's quotation marks here. It says, and it shall be in the last days, says Yahuwah, that I will pour from my spirit on all flesh. And your sons and your daughters shall prophesy, and your young men shall see visions, and your old men shall dream dreams. Now you should be thinking to yourselves, okay, this is a quote from Joel 2:32. The last days were not yet at Acts. So even though it was happening, a portion of that prophecy was happening, like it's almost like a foreshadowing, like a partial fulfillment in Acts 2:17. But you should be asking yourselves, okay, if that's not the last days, then there has to be a third installment of this event. There has to be a third outpouring, because it wasn't the end times yet in the book of Acts. Okay, so you have Joel chapter 2, verse 28 is a future. I believe this is the final fulfillment of this prophecy. And this will be happening on the day during the days of Yahuwah, whether it's just prior to the day of Yahuwah or during the day of Yahuwah. Joel chapter 2 says, sound the trumpet in Zion, make a proclamation in my set apart mountain, and let all the inhabitants of the land be confounded, for the day of Yahuwah is near. Okay, so right there it tells you this is just before the day of Yahuwah. It's very near to it. For a day of darkness and gloominess is near, a day of cloud and mist, and numerous strong people shall be spread upon the mountains as the morning. Wow. There has not been one like it from the beginning. Interesting. So very similar to the words about the Great Tribulation. So that's kind of interesting. And after it, there shall not be again, even the years of many generations. So possibly it might be towards the end of the Great Tribulation we might be seeing this last outpouring, possibly. Before them is a consuming fire, and behind them is a flame kindled. The land before them is a paradise, a delight. That's the definition of Eden, just for anyone that's wondering. So that's, in the Masoretic text, it would say Eden. Septuagint gives you the definition of that Hebrew word, of the Paleo-Hebrew, so paradise of delight. And behind them a desolate plain, none of them shall escape. Their appearance is as the appearance of horses, and as horsemen, so shall they pursue. And the sound of chariots on the tops of the mountains shall they leap, and as the sound of a flame of fire devouring stubble, and as a numerous and strong people setting themselves in array of battle. Before them shall the people be crushed, every face shall be as blackness of a cauldron. As warriors shall they run, and as the men of war shall they mount on the walls. Each shall move in his right path, and shall not turn aside from their tracks, and not one shall. Yep.
You're not reading Joel 2:28, which is what you're supposed to be reading.
Yeah. I was just thinking about reading through the whole chapter to give people context, but that's okay. All right, Joel 2:28, and it shall come to pass after I will pour out my spirit upon all flesh, And your sons and your daughters shall prophesy, and old men shall dream dreams, and your young men shall see visions. And on my servants and on my handmaids in those days I will pour out of my spirit, and I will show wonders in heaven and upon the earth, blood and fire and vapors of smoke. The sun shall be turned into darkness and the moon into blood before the coming of the great and esteemed day of Yahuwah. And it shall come to pass that whosoever shall call on the name of Yahuwah shall be saved. For in Mount Zion and in Jerusalem shall the saved one be, as Yahuwah has said, and they that have glad tidings, not good news, glad tidings, preach to them, whom Yahuwah has called. So Septuagint gives you the correct terminology for what we've learned as gospel or good news. It's actually glad tidings or happy tidings. Basically, glad news. That's the correct English terminology for it. But anyway, so this is taught.
That shows us that it will be before the coming of the great and awesome day of Yahuwah that this happens. There will be the third pouring out of his spirit upon all flesh, male and female alike, old and young alike. So we have that to look forward to. And I think it's my turn to take over. The 144,000. What's that?
No, I was just saying yes. I was just saying yes, sis. You're correct.
Okay.
All right, I'm going to turn over to you. The 144,000. Here you go.
The 144,000 are Yahushua HaMashiach's bride. And I'm going to be reading from Ephesians 5, verses 22 through 25. Wives, subject yourselves to your own husbands as to the master, because the husband is head of the wife, as also HaMashiach is head of the assembly, and he is Savior of the body. But as the assembly is subject to Messiah, so also let the wives be to their own husbands in every respect. Husbands, love your wives. Messiah also loved the assembly and gave himself for it, in order to kadosh it and cleanse it with the washing of water by the word, in order to present it to himself a splendid assembly, not having spot nor wrinkle or any of this sort, but that it might be kadesh and blameless. In this way, husbands ought to love their own wives as their own bodies. He who loves his wife loves himself. For no one ever hated his own flesh, but feeds and cherishes it, as also our Messiah does with the assembly, because we are members of his body, of his flesh, and of his bones. I added just a little bit more to get more context into that.
No problem. I saw something interesting from the Restored Name King James. Instead of blameless, it actually said without blemish, and I found that interesting. Because that's what the Hebrew word in Genesis 6, when it says it wrongly is translated as perfect in his generations, is actually supposed to say without blemish. So I kind of got like a little correlation there. So I found that kind of interesting. The King James actually says without blemish. So that's kind of interesting.
And all the offerings given were to be without blemish. And who do the offerings typify? They typify Messiah. So we have to also typify Messiah if we're going to be his bride. Okay, and Dennis, I have for you to read 2 Corinthians 11, verse 2.
Yep, Dennis. Oh, let me unmute you. That's sorry, my bad. Yep, 2 Corinthians chapter 11, verse 2.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, 2 Corinthians chapter 11, verse 2. For I am jealous for you with a jealousy, according to Elohim. For I gave you in marriage to one husband, to present you as an innocent maiden to Mashiach.
All right.
Okay.
Yep.
And then I'm going to read Revelation 14, 1 through 5. And I looked and saw a Lamb standing upon Mount Zion, and with him 144,000, having his Father's name written upon their foreheads. And I heard a voice out of the Shemayim, the heavens, like the voice of many waters, and like the voice of loud thunder. And I heard the sound of harpists playing their harps. And they sang a renewed song before the throne. I would like to say more new song than renewed song. I think it's going to be a brand new song that's going to be sung there.
Yeah, and I want to piggyback off of that, sis. Gotta be careful with certain translations. We like the ISR and the Halu scriptures, but for some reason, those translators, they don't like using the word new. I've just noticed that
I don't know.
everything in the New Testament with those two specific translations says renewed in English. Like they don't want to use new for some reason. So that's a whole nother topic we could do a study about. But it's supposed to be new there. It's a new song. If you look at older translations, like any English translation that came before these restored names, they all said new. It's supposed to be new from the Greek. It's supposed to be new. They have a problem with that, like 2 Corinthians 5:17, even though that's a different topic. They try to put renewed. You're a renewed person. To me, that takes away the meaning spiritually of being a new, different person in Messiah. That's just my opinion. I think that takes away from it. So.
Well, this is also, I think it's taking away from the song by calling it renewed. It's not renewed. It's a brand new song. Because if you read about it, they sang this new song before the throne and before the four living creatures and the elders. And no one was able to learn that song except the 144,000 who were redeemed from the earth. Now, this is a special group who are only going to be redeemed at that time. When Messiah returns for his own, these are Messiah's own, and they're called the bride of Messiah. They are those who are not defiled with women, for they are maidens. They are those following the Lamb wherever he goes. They were redeemed from among men, being first fruits to Yahuwah and to the Lamb, and in their mouth was found no falsehood, for they are blameless before the throne of Yahuwah. And now, Doug, if you will read Revelation 7, verses 2 through 4.
Yep. So now we are on the part of the seal of Yahuwah. So I will be reading some verses talking about the seal of Yahuwah. It's talked about in Ezekiel, Revelations. So I'm going to first read Revelation 7, 2 to 4 here. And this is going to be talking about his seal. So here we go. Revelation chapter 7, verses 2 to 4, I will be reading from the Restored Name King James. And it says, "And I saw another angel ascending from the east, having the seal of the living Elohim. And he cried with a loud voice to the four angels to whom it was given to hurt the earth and the sea." So interesting. Saying, "Hurt not the earth, neither the sea, nor the trees." That's kind of interesting. People that know about the book of Enoch, you'll see why I kind of accentuated that part, nor the trees. Because in Enoch, it talks about the fallen angels, cut down the trees. So it's kind of interesting. "Till we have sealed the servants of our Elohim in their foreheads." And I heard a number of them which were sealed, meaning now it's present tense, now they've already been sealed. And there were sealed 144,000 of all the tribes of the children of Yashrael. And as you read, you can do on your own time, viewers and listeners, you continue on in this chapter. I encourage you to read the rest of this chapter. You'll see all the tribes of Yashrael each have like a certain number. They each have 12,000. So it's a very interesting chapter. I would encourage everyone to read the whole chapter, Revelation 7. So, but anyway, as we continue here, all right, I'm trying to move as quickly as possible here. Okay, so now we got Revelation chapter 9, verses 3 to 4, which say, okay, here. And there came out of the smoke of the locusts upon the earth, and upon them that was given power as scorpions of the earth have power. So this is talking about the demonic army of Apollyon. And it was commanded them that they should not hurt the grass of the earth, neither any green tree, neither any tree, but only those men which have not the seal of Yahuwah in their foreheads. I like how the Restored in King James puts the tetragrammaton right here where it's supposed to be. So it gets even more specific in chapter 9. It's the seal of the Almighty Yahuwah in their foreheads. So because they did not have that seal in their foreheads, those are the ones that are going to be harmed by the locust army of the bottomless pit. And to them it was given that they should not kill them, that they should be tormented 5 months. And this is where we get the idea they actually wanted death. It's so bad they wanted death. And their torment was the torment of a scorpion when he strikes a man. And in those days shall men seek death, but shall not find it, and shall desire to die, and death shall flee from them. I just wanted to add that one verse for context. So they're actually going to be so tormented. They're fleeing from death. They're actually wanting to die, and die's fleeing from them. And so this probably has a lot to do with the mark of the beast too, because they took the mark of the beast, they can't die. It's like a false salvation type of thing. So that's a whole nother topic for a whole nother time, but just kind of give you a better picture there. The pain is so bad, and the mark of the beast causes them not to physically die in their human form, so they're constantly being tormented without any relief. 2 Corinthians chapter.
This kind of leads us into another subtopic, as we might call it, about the second woman and her followers who drink the cup of Yahuwah's wrath poured out undiluted.
Yep, I got one more cross reference before we get there, just one more. Okay. 2 Corinthians 1:22 also talks about a seal. And actually, I also have the one from Ezekiel also I want to read. 2 Corinthians 1:22, who has also sealed us and given the earnest of the Spirit in our hearts. And let me use a different translation. Who also has sealed us and given us the Spirit in our hearts as a pledge. Now that's interesting. I like the Complete Apostles Bible there. Makes it a little bit more easy to understand. All right, so now the last one I want to do before Sister Shoshana gets into the next part, and we might have to do part 3 today. Ezekiel chapter 9, verse 4, it says, and said to him, go through the midst of Jerusalem and set a mark on the foreheads of the men that groan, that grieve, and that grieve for all the lawlessnesses that are done in the midst of them. That's part of the seal of Yahuwah. That's part of it.
Yeah.
You know, constantly grieving over people just willfully sinning. They don't care. Oh, I'm going to commit adultery. I don't care. Oh, I'm going to steal from my neighbor. I don't care. Oh, I'm not going to help my neighbor's, animal that's in a ditch because I'm selfish. We should be grieving over that stuff because it's just evil. I mean, you can look at the book of Psalms. That's a whole nother topic too. The book of Psalms, David is constantly crying. It says, tears have run down my eyes because those forsake your law. So that's part of Yahuwah's seal, that we kind of sometimes we overlook that part. And that was Ezekiel chapter 9, verse 4. And now, Sister Shoshana, let me see how much time we got. Got about 5 minutes, so we could probably fit like one more cross reference if you want. We'll try to fit this first part of the second woman.
Yeah, that'll be Dennis reading Revelation 14, verses 8 through 11. And then I'll read 6 through 7. Or I'll go ahead and take my part before Dennis.
Yeah.
Revelation 14, 6 through 7. And I saw another messenger flying in the mid-heaven, holding the everlasting or should I say glad tidings, sorry.
Yeah, it's okay.
Everlasting glad to announce to those dwelling on the earth, even to every nation and tribe and tongue and people, saying with a loud voice, revere Yahuwah and give esteem to him, because the hour of his judgment has come, and worship him who made the heavens and the earth and the sea and the fountains of water. Okay, Dennis, if you'll pick up at verse 8 and read through 11.
Yep.
And another messenger followed, saying, Babel is fallen, that great city, because she has made all nations drink of the wine of the wrath of her whoring. And a third messenger followed them, saying with a loud voice, if anyone worships the beast in his image, and receives his mark upon his forehead or upon his hand, he also shall drink of the wine of the wrath of Elohim, which is poured out undiluted into the cup of his wrath. And he shall be tortured with fire and sulfur before the set apart messengers or angels, and before the Lamb. And the smoke of their torture goes up forever and ever, and they shall have no rest day or night, those worshiping the beast in his image. Also, if anyone receives the mark of his name.
Thank you, Dennis. That was a great job. Also, for the viewers, just to let you know, the reason I sometimes use the Restored Name King James is for this instance right here. The wrath of Elohim. Yeah, it's actually supposed to be Yahuwah here. So the Restored Name King James, actually, they do the right thing, and they actually put the Tetragrammaton back, the YHWH, or more correctly, YHUH would be here. And so most translations will just put Elohim or Elohim, and just out of tradition of replacing Yahuwah's name with a title, they'll keep it as a title instead of putting his name there. So that's just something I wanted to bring to the people's attention. So it actually should say, the same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of Yahuwah in verse 10. So just wanted to bring that up. Also, that was Brother Dennis. He just read on that was the whore. So I don't know if we mentioned that before. That was the Scarlet Harlot, as Brother Dennis likes to call her. And part 3, we will be reading about the winepress of Yahuwah's wrath, of his wrath, those that are reaped from the earth and thrown into the winepress, the tares. So we'll be getting to that in part 3. Please stay tuned. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. This is Brother Doug, and let me unmute everyone. Just thank you for joining us, and have a great rest of your new moon day to our brothers and sisters. Please stay tuned to part 3. We'll try our best to get part 3 to you guys as soon as possible. Shalom.
Shalom.